On August 3rd of 2010, an employee at the Hartford Distributors Incorporation went into work with evil intentions. Shortly after a meeting with his bosses, what this guy would do was absolutely sickening. This is the heinous case of Omar Thornton. Hello, friend, and welcome to High Time Crime. My name's Joel, and on here I specialize in true crime and also painting. Please allow me to show you one of my digital artworks I've been working on for so long. Thank you. But anyway, today we're going over a very twisted case involving a man who wanted to get back at people who he believed wronged him. Omar Sharif Kinder was born on April 25th of 1976 at St. Francis Hospital in Hartford, Connecticut to Lily Judkins or Lily Holiday. Omar was the youngest of 3 siblings and considered to be the baby of the family. He was 4 pounds and 10 ounces at birth, and Lily had only been pregnant with him for 7 months before she went into labor. Omar had to be hospitalized for about a month or so due to problems, and it was revealed that Lily had smoked cigarettes and weed the entire time that she was pregnant with him. Now, not a super crazy amount of information about Omar's life is out there, but we do know some things. At the age of 5, Omar was actually hit by a car and had to be hospitalized for 8 days in the ICU. What exactly this did to him isn't very clear, as those documents were never released. Obviously, if he was in the ICU, something bad was going on, but it's not cited how bad. Years later, in 1988, when Omar was a little over 12 years old, his mother Lily applied to have Omar's name changed from Omar Sharif Kinder to Omar Sharif Thornton. The reason for this is because Lily had relations with a few guys at the time, and she assumed Omar was one guy's, but he was actually someone else's, a guy named Richard Thornton's. The judge had ordered blood tests to be taken to determine the paternity, and, well, that was figured out. By November 17th of that year, Omar's last name was now Thornton. Going back just a few years when Omar started to attend elementary school in Hartford. Now, a lot of this information was redacted for some reason, but something happened when Omar was a child that landed him in the Newington Children's Hospital School. They changed their name to the Connecticut Children's Medical Center School. But apparently this school had a ton of extensive records on Omar, but the police were not allowed to access them. Or maybe we could have had some more pieces to this puzzle. A good amount of time would pass though, and by 1991, Omar had transferred to Manchester High School. Why or where he transferred from, who knows. Once again, something happened here which was redacted, and it states that Omar then enrolled at East Hartford High School. Now, according to Detective Rivard's investigation, he, for some reason, seemed to believe that Omar never graduated high school or attended adult education classes, but that isn't the case. Omar's mother posted a graduation document from East Hartford High School that shows that Omar graduated in June of 1996, which would have made him 20 years old. Now, he was transferred to a different high school in 1991. And that's 5 years until he graduated, so we can speculate that he failed a grade. And if he was 20 years old, we can probably speculate that he either started school late or failed another grade, though I'm not too sure. Also in high school though, Omar began dating a woman named Jessica, and they loved each other, and from what I can tell, they got along great. Omar, after high school, would attend Naugatuck Valley Community College, and this is where he got phlebotomy skills for healthcare personnel. Not sure what exactly that means. According to his obituary, he also owned a business called Carl and Roberts, and another business called O&E Clothing. I'm unsure of how successful they were. Now, Omar mostly would work as a warehouse person or a truck driver. He typically appeared to be quiet and stayed to himself, and for Omar, money seemed to be an issue. And as money being tight tends to be a common thing nowadays, I think I have a good solution for a little bit of extra cash. Free Cash is a platform where you can sign up for free and start making money by completing tasks such as playing games or doing surveys. Getting started is super simple. Just sign up for Free Cash with your email and receive special offers available in your location, and you'll start earning extra money in no time. On Free Cash, you can select from a range of offers available. Each task will show you how much you'll earn and what you need to do to complete it. With over 100,000 reviews on Trustpilot and an average of 4.5 stars, it's definitely a place you know that you can trust. You can play games to earn anywhere from 50 cents to $120, or you can complete offers and earn from $1 up to $75 just for trying out an app. When you sign up, you'll get the light mode and exclusive offers, and after reaching $20, aka reaching level 20, you'll get access to all of the offers including games, app testing, surveys, and much more on Free Cash. All cash out options including crypto, more gift card options and game skins, and to other unique options such as their affiliate program or leaderboard. You can also earn daily bonuses from the leaderboard or by starting a streak, and this could get you some awesome rewards. Once again, that is on the light mode. Over $50 million has been earned, and the average amount of money users earned yesterday was $47.47. The average amount of time it took for a user to make their first cash out was only 17 minutes and 12 seconds. To avoid being unsubstantiated and to not overwhelm you with statistics, I tested the app myself. Since I don't have an Android, I had to use Safari on my iPhone, and I played a game called Dice Dreams, and I earned a total of $26.92. It took me only a couple of hours, and I can already withdraw my money. I decided to withdraw it through PayPal. Now I have an extra $20 to spend to maybe get some extra gas or maybe buy a pizza. So what are you waiting for? Either sign up for Free Cash by using my link in the description or by scanning my QR code that's here on the screen. Now, coming back to, if I'm wrong about the order of Omar's jobs, my apologies. But Omar worked at American Transportation and Logistics LLC for a bit of time. A coworker of his here named Edward said that a lot of people there called him a mama's boy because his mother would come into the company and fight his battles for him, which I find to be an interesting thing to say, considering what she does down the line. Another thing to add here is that at some point, a little before this, between 1996 to 1998, Omar obtained his CDL or commercial driver's license to drive big trucks. But after working there, Omar then went to a place called Argix Direct, and here he was driving trucks. A coworker of Omar's there named Bo said that Omar one day walked off the job because he refused to take a run or a truckload to Trumbull, Connecticut. Bo said that the driving route wasn't the best and that it was rotated based on volume. After walking out, Omar was fired, but I think he kind of quit himself. Now, from March of 1999 to February of 2000, Omar was working for Roberts Express in Akron, Ohio as a long-haul trucker. During this period of time, Omar's supervisor was a man by the name of Michael Flynn, not the general. But Michael said that he fired Omar for stealing money, and this is a very big thing to keep in mind because of what happens later. Michael said he gave Omar $245 to fill up the gas in a truck, and Michael said that Omar never put any fuel in the truck and just kept the money. Michael continued to say that Omar would get calls from his mother all the time, and that he'd leave work and go home and never return, and that he thought his mother called way too much. Michael said that Omar would always complain about how he would be treated at the drop-off sites, and that he complained that he didn't like N-words. He said that. To add to this, Omar's girlfriend, or Jessica, said he always felt like he was discriminated because he was African American and that they wouldn't give him any pay raises, that he never felt like they accepted him as a hard-working person. Jessica said that one time Omar had a confrontation with a white coworker who used a racial slur against him, and that Omar changed jobs a bunch of times because he wouldn't get raises. Omar told Jessica that he was sick of having to quit jobs and get a different one because his employers just wouldn't accept him. Omar would actually help Jessica become a nursing aide, and in that same time, he also received a nurse aide certificate from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, so I guess they may have done it together. But Jessica further stated that Omar was a guy who never drank, never smoked, and he was usually very calm, even when she would yell or grab him. She said he was such a caring person and showed her so much love. He was like a teddy bear. Jessica's sister, Tony, said that Omar would come home, and I guess they all lived together at the time, but Omar would say things about how his coworkers called him racial slurs and how people would pass by him and Jessica and make rude comments. Tony said Omar just didn't understand why people had so much hatred in their lives, and that Omar actually put her entire family in a hotel after a fire burned down their house, and Omar was the best man she ever met, and that he was like a second dad to her children. But in the year 2000, Omar, at the age of 24, filed for bankruptcy protection, or a Chapter 7, and he listed his assets totaling $4,850, which included a 1994 Chrysler Concorde. Omar said that he had about $600 in the bank, and he was over $15,000 in debt, mostly because of credit card payments and some student loans. Next, Omar began working at Chem Station, New England, as a driver. The owner, Bruce, said that Omar was a likable kid who worked hard. But Bruce said something that made a lot of sense, and that was that Omar had too many learning disabilities, so Bruce had to let him go about 10 months after he started. If you remember, Omar had been held back, and so there's probably a correlation there. Also, Bruce said that Omar wasn't handling chemicals correctly, and he wasn't doing it safely, that he just didn't have the skills and felt that he was a safety liability. Bruce said another thing that I find to be of importance as well, and that's the fact that Omar's mother would show up at the chem station to check on Omar's attendance and make sure he was actually going to work. After Bruce fired Omar, his mother came in and asked Bruce to tell her why Omar got fired. Not long after this, in March of 2001, all of Omar's debt was discharged, and the next month in April, his case was closed. Omar would have several more jobs after this, including working at the JCPenney warehouse and FedEx as well. Both of those jobs he was fired from for bad attendance or just not showing up at all. By about late 2001 to 2002-ish, Omar and Jessica would break up. I'm going to mention her momentarily later with something that she said that I thought was a bit weird. But not long after Omar and Jessica broke up, in 2002, Omar began dating another woman by the name of Christy Hanna. The next year, in 2003, Omar moved in with Christy in Enfield, Connecticut, and the couple had 2 roommates. One of them was a guy named Clayton Mack. Clayton said that in about 2006 to 2007, Omar started to receive a ton of calls from debt collectors. About the next year, Clayton saw Omar and Christy sitting at the kitchen table while Omar shopped for a handgun, and he told Clayton that he wanted the pistol just for protection. Clayton wasn't too concerned because he himself was a part of the National Rifle Association, but he told Omar to be careful about where and how he buys the gun. Christy's mother, Joanne, said that after Omar bought the first pistol, he bought a bunch of guns and that he wanted to teach Christy how to shoot. Joanne also said something I find interesting considering this whole story and what you'll come to find out later. But Joanne said that her and Omar got into an argument one time where she used a racial epithet to describe him, and he in turn called her a and said that he was sick and tired of people being to him. Now, going back to Omar and his job, specifically the day that he was hired by Hartford Distributors Incorporation as a warehouse worker, or August 3rd of 2008, which is a bit ironic with the date. But when Omar actually got hired, he believed that the workers, who are a part of the union, the Teamsters Local 1035, were all going to go on strike. This strike never happened, but Omar remained employed with the company, and he was working the third shift, or 8:30 p.m. to 7 a.m. Omar had told a coworker of his named Patrick Stevens and two other people that he really did not like working the third shift, and he was really upset because he had thought he got hired as a driver because he already obtained his CDL many years before. What's weird though here is that I read his CDL got suspended in 2008 for 3 months. For what? I have no idea. But Omar told some other coworkers that he was upset that the Teamsters union wasn't helping him become a driver like they did for his coworker John. A guy named Christopher, who was the secretary, treasurer, principal officer of Teamsters Local 1035, said that he and a guy named Brian Sirigliano, or the president of the Teamsters Local 1035, met with Omar during the summer of 2009 and told him that John had more seniority than he did, and because of that he would be trained and hired as a driver before Omar would be. Omar told them that he had trouble with this because he worked just as hard as John and should be trained. These two men said that Omar couldn't grasp the concept of seniority, and that Chris told Omar that he was the next employee to move up to the driver's position once an opening became available. An opening ended up becoming available, and Omar was the next person to get it. Though I find this situation to be a bit strange, if Omar was supposed to be hired as a driver and thought that he was going to be, why would they put him in the warehouse? After having worked a warehouse job myself, that definitely would have been pretty annoying. But the vice president of Hartford Distributors Incorporation, Stephen Hollander, said that the company paid for Omar to attend the Teamsters driver training school and that he passed. After passing, Omar was transferred to the driving department, but then came a whole new world of trouble. So due to a union contract between the Hartford Distributors Incorporation and the employees, they were bound to a seniority-based program. To give you a better understanding, basically the trucks were loaded up each night, and by 7:15 a.m. they were ready to be taken, and they were posted every morning in the driver's room on the wall. The driver who was there the longest at the company was allowed to choose the load that they wanted first, and then the second longest driver, and so on. Omar didn't realize that once he moved up to the driving position from the warehouse position, that employee would go straight to the bottom of the totem pole. Basically, this meant that Omar would get the deliveries that were difficult, the ones that no one wanted. Also, the drivers at the bottom would be forced to work overtime if no one else would take it. Omar started to complain to a coworker named Manuel about how he felt like he was being discriminated against because they were always giving him the worst loads. Manuel tried to explain to Omar that he wasn't being discriminated against, but that was just how seniority worked at the company because of the contract. Omar also went to Manuel and told him that he felt he was being discriminated against because the other drivers weren't picking him to work in tandem with them. Manuel said he tried to tell Omar once again that he wasn't being discriminated against, but Omar felt that he was. Christy, Omar's girlfriend, had said that Omar said he was being racially harassed at work. That in the fall of 2009, he called her from the men's bathroom at the warehouse, and he let her hear his boss and colleague, who was supposedly a union representative, say that they were going to get rid of Omar using racial slurs. Hannah said that she heard the comments very clearly. People at the warehouse had seemed to think otherwise, though, that perhaps it was the opposite. A Hispanic co-worker of Omar's named Mark said that it was actually Omar who voiced racial hatred toward white co-workers. Mark said in a notarized affidavit that once or twice in the past, Omar jokingly asked him if he knew any good white men. Mark said that he told Omar to look around. There is a lot of good white men around here. Omar would say to Mark that you gotta kill them before they go bad. Other co-workers at the warehouse said that Omar was a quiet guy who kept to himself, and he seemed easygoing. That he typically wore a Bluetooth device while he'd talk on his cell phone. A lot of them also said that Omar was lazy, and he constantly needed help to complete tasks. Patrick Stevens, who was an African-American co-worker, said in a notarized affidavit that Omar was a lazy guy who would fall asleep while working. Patrick and other warehouse workers would tease Omar for being lazy and falling asleep, and Omar would just laugh it off. That Patrick has no idea how he survived as long as he did as a delivery driver. A different co-worker, who was a mixed man named Tory Braxton, said in a notarized affidavit that Omar never had problems with race at Hartford Distributors, and if anything, they treated him like family and embraced him and supported him through difficult times in his life. Tory said that Omar was polite and quiet, and that he was satisfied with doing only the minimum amount of work that was required of him. That Omar never went above and beyond of what was asked of him, that Omar was not a team player. Tory said he only did things for himself and not for the good of the company. Tory said that so many people were aware of Omar's work ethic, at the warehouse they started calling him Slowmar. One time, a co-worker of Omar's named William Ackerman, who was in the company's breakage department, repackaging beer cases when bottles would break, got into an argument with Omar, though it's unclear about what. They were in the break room and William yelled something and Omar said, "Don't you talk to me like that." And William said, "Get the fuck out of here if you're not going to work. I want you out of here." Omar mentioned to another co-worker of theirs named Hugh Marsh, who was also African American, that he thought William was racist. Hugh told Omar that William was cool and his friend and that he never saw William being racist. Now in the year 2010, horrible things would happen, but a bunch of other things would lead up to it. To start off, in the spring of that year, Omar and Christy would break up, but their relationship was on and off. Apparently they were actually engaged and talked about having a family. Christy said she fell in love with Omar because he was the most gentle man she ever met, that his eyes were so kind, that he would never hurt another creature. A weird statement to make, but Christy said that some of Omar's co-workers would mess with him by parking the trucks the wrong way just to give him extra work, and that Omar was one of 2 black men in the whole company, and that they were being treated as outcasts, as misfits. Patrick Stevens was one of those guys and said the opposite, and said that Omar was lazy. Also, there were a total of 4 African American men who worked in the office, 9 Hispanic men, and 1 Asian guy. There were 69 workers, 14 which were minorities, and that made up about 20% of the company or so. Hannah also said that one time there was an incident where a coworker bumped into Omar with a forklift, and that she had to help put bandages on him. When she asked what happened, he said that this jerk hit him with a forklift, and that he thinks he did it on purpose. Hannah said that this coworker was reprimanded about 2 weeks later. I don't know exactly who she's talking about. Now, going to June 29th of 2010, a woman named Lisa contacted Louis Felder, who was the operations director at Hartford Distributions. She told him that she witnessed an African-American delivery driver from Hartford Distributors Incorporation unloading cases of beer from his delivery truck and stacking them into the back of a green car. This was behind a mobile gas station in Enfield, Connecticut. Lisa said that this truck had the number 29 on it, and so Louis immediately began an investigation, and what they found was interesting. In very early July of 2010, Louis decided to purposefully put a bunch of extra beer into Omar's delivery truck. Now an honest driver would see that he had a bunch of extra product and then bring it back to the warehouse. Well, when Omar got back, there was no beer cases accounted for. They were all gone. So Lewis obviously knew that something was going on, and so he decided to contact Christopher, the secretary, treasurer, principal officer of Teamsters Local 1035, and he told him that he wanted to fire Omar for stealing. Christopher had told Lewis that he didn't have enough proof to fire Omar, since a bunch of other drivers would just take everything off of their trucks at the last stop too, because they didn't feel like counting and wanted to save some time. Christopher said to Lewis that all they could prove was that Omar accidentally gave beer away. Lewis got upset by this and told Christopher that he was going to have the company hire a private investigator to follow Omar around to prove that he was stealing. Christopher never told Omar this, but I think that word must have gotten around. This is because Omar had told Christy, his fiancée or girlfriend, sometime in like the first week of July, that the company was looking for a way to get rid of him and paint him as a problem, that they were going to pin something on him to get him out of the company. Christy decided to draft up a letter for Omar to sign to the Budweiser company about abuse in which he was being given, that he heard people say he got promoted to be a driver because he was the N-word. Omar told Christy he was being harassed at work. Christy said that Omar showed her a picture that he took with his phone of a drawing that was in the bathroom at the warehouse. It depicted a man that was being hanged with the words "kill N-words." Christy said that the drawing had Omar's name written near it. To corroborate this story, a bunch of other co-workers said they saw this graffiti in question. One was a guy named William, the other Miguel. William said that it stated Obama, and that the graffiti contained a drawing of a noose, and that someone else added Michelle Obama's name. Both him and Miguel said this, and that they tried to clean it off but couldn't, and that they told Louis Felder about the drawing, and by the next day, it was gone. Pretty much every employee that saw this drawing had said it was real, but it had President Obama's name, nothing about Omar. Going back to Lewis, though, and what he was going to do to deal with Omar. Lewis decided to hire a private investigator by the name of Daniel. Daniel's credentials are good, but on July 16th of 2010, Daniel recorded Omar driving his delivery truck to the rear of Riverview Gun Sales. Here he removed 2 aluminum beer kegs from his trunk and placed them into the trunk of a green Honda Civic. 2 people were inside, a male and a female, and the guy thanked Omar before driving off. About a week later, on July 23rd, Omar was filmed again behind Riverview Gun Sales, meeting with this time only the woman. Omar was recorded loading cases of beer from his truck into this woman's car. Now the people who were buying the beer were identified as a guy named Sean and his wife Christy. Sean was actually a former employee of Hartford Distributors Incorporation, and he worked with Omar. They kept in contact after Sean left, and, well, I guess Sean and his wife wanted to buy beer cheaper than they normally would. Both of them got arrested for this, but that's besides the point. On July 28th of 2010, Christopher, the Secretary Treasurer Principal Officer of Teamsters Local 1035, learned that Hartford Distributors Incorporation had recorded Omar stealing product. Christopher arranged a meeting with Lewis at 11 a.m. on Thursday, July 29th of 2010. This meeting never took place though because Christopher's son was involved in a very bad car accident the night before. Christopher told Lewis and Stephen Hollander, the vice president of Hartford Distributors, that they would have to address this issue with the union steward, Brian Sirigliano. The next day, on Friday, July 30th, Stephen said that Lewis, another union representative, and himself were going to meet with Omar and let him choose to resign or be fired. This meeting did not happen because Omar for some reason called in sick this day. He had no idea about the meeting. Stephen said that they pushed the meeting back to Monday, August 2nd of 2010 in the morning to meet Omar. But Omar came into work late. He picked up his load and left before they had the chance to. They decided they would wait for Omar to get back that afternoon, but Brian couldn't make the meeting in the afternoon and asked if they could postpone the meeting until the next day, or Tuesday, August 3rd. Everyone thought that that would be fine. A guy named Paul, who was the second shift supervisor, said that Lewis told him to inform Omar when he got back from his route that per Lewis's request, he had to be in at 7 a.m. for a meeting. Paul said that Omar appeared to be nervous and suspicious, and that he asked what the meeting was about. Paul said that he told Omar he has no idea, and that he jokingly said it might be about him getting promoted. Paul said that Omar once again asked what the meeting was about, but laughed at his little joke. Paul knew what the meeting was about, but he just couldn't tell Omar. Paul said that Omar walked away looking upset and that he seemed guilty. Later that day, or August 2nd, Omar was at his mother's house at about 6:15 p.m. when his uncle Wilbert visited them. Wilbert and Omar talked about Wilbert potentially getting a pistol permit. Wilbert said that Omar showed him 2 guns that he had and that he'd be interested in selling him once he got his permit. This was a Ruger 9mm handgun and another 9mm handgun that was hammer-fired. Wilbert said that Omar showed him a video on the internet that taught him how to operate the Ruger 9mm. Wilbert continued by saying that Omar began showing him how to use the pistol when told him that each magazine held 17 rounds. Wilbert said that Omar said something very ominous. That he said, "That's 34 bullets. Those guys at work," and then he quickly changed the subject. Wilbert said that he laughed it off and said, "Come on," trying to say to Omar that it wasn't worth it and that he didn't really mean that. But this shows something very clear, that sometime around this point, Omar decided to fall through with his plan. After being at his mother's for a while, he went to his girlfriend Christie's and played video games and ate dinner with her son. They supposedly had a normal night and Omar spent the night, but the next day would be absolutely haunting. On August 3rd of 2010, Omar Thornton woke up with an evil vengeance on his mind. He got ready early in the morning after being woken up by Christie's son. Secretly inside of his lunchbox, rather than packing a lunch, he packed 2 guns, a Ruger SR9 with a 17-round magazine, a Ruger P95 with a 15-round magazine, 2 extra magazines, and 2 extra boxes of 9mm ammo. Omar had at some point decided that he was going to follow through with his lingering thoughts of murder. He went out to his car, and I'll let Christy tell you what happened here.
When he was leaving, he gave me a really, really big hug and kiss that I've never really gotten like that before, and I kept asking him what was wrong, and I gave him another kiss and hug out at his car.
Afterwards, Omar drove off, and he went to the Hartford Distributors Incorporation. He arrived there at 6:59 a.m., only 1 minute before his meeting that was scheduled. Omar entered the building using the employee's entrance, and he was wearing a black Rocky Balboa t-shirt, a pair of shorts, a black glove on his right hand, and some work boots. Omar in his right hand carried his lunchbox. At 7:05 a.m., Stephen Hollander, the vice president of Hartford Distributors Incorporation, walked into the building with his son Aaron. I believe he was around 13 or so. Well, anyway, Omar was sitting in the warehouse waiting to meet with Stephen, Louis Felder, the operation director at Hartford Distributions, and Brian Sirigliano, the president of the Teamsters Local 1035. I'm telling you their positions again, just so it's clarified. But Omar was looking into the warehouse window and to the office area, and this is when Stephen went into Louis Felder's office. Louis was sitting at his desk. Omar followed behind Stephen, but there wasn't a discussion that took place. Louis then got up to go get Brian. Meanwhile, Stephen's son, Aaron, was in the building's kitchen trying to make Eggos right next to Louis's office. Stephen decided to excuse himself to go help Aaron. Eventually, he returned to Louis's office, and by this point, both Louis and Brian were entering as well. Everyone sat down and thus began a discussion with Omar. It started by saying they heard rumors that Omar had been stealing beer. Omar looked very innocent and would not admit or deny anything. Stephen then said to Omar that they received a phone call from a random person that he was stealing beer. Lewis then chimed in and told Omar that they hired a private investigator to follow him and that they had proof that he was stealing the beer. Next, they actually showed Omar the proof that he was stealing. Omar apparently sat there and said nothing. Brian asked Stephen and Lewis if he could talk to Omar alone. Stephen and Lewis then left the office, and Brian and Omar talked in private for about 10 to 15 minutes. Brian came out of the office and told Stephen and Lewis that all he had to say was that he was impressed with the quality of the video. Brian said that Omar asked him what they would say about him for a job reference if he resigned. Brian said at first he told Omar if we told prospective employees that he got caught stealing, he would just let us fire him. I don't really know what that means. But Stephen then said to Brian that their company policy is only to confirm dates of employment and positions held. So Brian then went back into the office with Omar for only about 15 seconds or so, and he opened the door and told Stephen and Lewis that Omar said he'll resign. Stephen and Lewis then went into the office again, and Stephen told Omar that he needs to write a resignation note with both his signature and the date. Omar did this. Stephen then asked Omar if the woman in the video was one of their customers, and Omar said she wasn't, but that a lot of their customers did steal. Lewis asked him if he would mind sharing more information about that. Omar said that a store in Hartford would buy extra kegs and that a bunch of the redemption centers would give him cash if he wrote credit for more return bags than were actually returned. Brian then said that there was nothing more to say, and so everyone got up and walked out. Brian asked Stephen and Lewis if they'd pay Omar what he was owed, and Stephen said yes, that they'd mail it to him. Brian then walked out, Omar followed him, Stephen went third, and Lewis was fourth. As the men walked past the kitchen, Omar said that he was going to go get a glass of water, and so Lewis followed him in there. Brian and Stephen continued their path down the hallway when, all of a sudden, Stephen said he heard Lewis yell, "Omar, you can't!" And Brian and Stephen began to turn around when they heard a loud bang. Stephen then began running out of the hallway where he was with Brian, and he ran into an office area. Brian was frozen and Omar was coming. Brian yelled, "Omar, no! Omar, no!" And a gunshot rang out. At this point, Stephen realized that Omar was shooting a gun, and so he began running down the hallway until he got to his father's old office and he closed the door. It was at this point that Stephen realized he had been grazed by a bullet that struck his left arm and face. It's speculated that this is the same bullet that was used to murder Lewis. It went through the wall. But Stephen then called 911, and here is that call.
911.
I need the cops here at Hartford Distributors right away, shooting.
What's going on? Who got
Somebody
shot?
got shot. I got shot.
Okay, I need some information, sir. Who
We
got shot?
need the cops. Omar Thornton shooting people. I just got shot.
Okay, I need to know what his name is.
His name is Omar Thornton. He's a black guy. Get the cops here right away, please.
Sir, stay on the line with me. My
Bleeding
partner
all over the place.
Okay. How many people got shot?
I don't know.
Okay, you don't know. And you're shot where?
In my head.
You're shot in the head?
Yeah.
And what's your name?
My name is Steve Hollander.
Okay.
I
What's
think
that
I'm
medical
shot in
help? Who's the person shooting people again?
His name is Omar Thornton. He's a black guy. He's wearing shorts.
Okay, black male shorts. Anything else? What kind of gun?
I don't know. I didn't see it.
You didn't see it. And where are you in the building, sir?
I'm hiding in an office.
Hiding where?
In an office. People are running all over the place.
Okay, I understand that, but if you keep talking to me, we can help you more, okay?
All right, yeah.
Okay. And you don't know if it was an automatic weapon or not?
He shot pretty fast.
Okay, and you're still, are you bleeding a lot?
Yeah, there's people running all over the place.
Okay.
Okay, I just see him running out. He's running away right now. He's shooting at somebody else. Yeah, he's still shooting.
He's outside.
He's shooting at a girl.
Okay. How many people are down, sir?
He's still running after people. He's not leaving.
Okay, do you see what kind of gun he has, sir?
It's a black gun. I don't know.
Is it
He's wearing a blue shirt and blue shorts. Oh, he's still shooting. I hear guns out there.
All right. Did he used to work there?
Yeah, till I just fired him.
Today?
Today, just now before he started shooting. He's chasing people out in the parking lot.
After this, at 7:25 a.m., Omar ran from the office area and went into the warehouse area. Omar was in pursuit of Steven, but Steven ran right into the offices and locked himself in. At this point, drivers at the warehouse began running from the driver's room because someone yelled, "Run! He's got a gun!" And this room is connected to the office area by a window. One guy named Craig Pepin began running, and a coworker named John, who survived, said that it looked like Craig was running in slow motion with his arms flapping around like rubber. Craig was then shot and killed by Omar. Another guy named Victor James was one of the drivers, and he ran through the warehouse, but unfortunately was shot and killed by Omar. As Victor was running, there was a man named Douglas Scrutton who was working on a forklift. Douglas had no time to react, and within just a second of Victor being killed, Douglas was too. About 12 seconds later, still at 7:25, surveillance footage caught a man named Francis Fazio running past the break room, and Omar was running right after him. Francis ran into the trash compactor area where a guy named William Ackerman was working. If you remember, William and Omar got into a big argument. But Aaron, Steven's son, was actually in the doorway of the break room looking at the trash compactor area, and he could be seen covering his ears to mask the sound of the gunshots. Omar then shot Francis twice and killed him. Then he aimed at William, and William yelled, "Omar, no, no!" And he had his hands up trying to run away, but Omar shot him 3 times, killing him. About 15 seconds would pass, and still at 7:25 a.m., surveillance footage showed Omar entering the break room, walking past Aaron. It's very clear that Omar was targeting people that worked there. A guy named Edwin Kennison was in the break room, and he was holding a case of beer. Omar shot Edwin in the shoulder, and Aaron said that he was laughing the entire time. At 7:26 a.m., surveillance footage showed Omar chasing Edwin down the hall toward the employee's entrance. Omar continued to chase Edwin into the driveway of the warehouse when a guy named Jerome Rosenstein was on a golf cart riding by. Omar shot at Jerome 3 times and continued to chase Edwin. 2 of the rounds hit Jerome, but the last one hit the golf cart, and that one would have likely killed him. But still at 7:26 a.m., surveillance footage showed Omar chasing Edwin back towards the building, and within moments, Edwin was killed. While running toward the building, Edwin tripped and fell right in front of the lobby entrance. By this point, he was already shot once in the shoulder in the break room. Edwin was pleading with Omar for his life, and Omar walked right up behind him and shot him 2 more times, once in the back of the head, killing him. Omar chased Edwin for a total of 649 feet. A guy who watched Omar kill Edwin named Vinicio was yelling at Omar to put down the gun. Omar then just walked past the lobby entrance and then to the employee's entrance. Vinicio was still yelling for him to put down the gun, and this is when Omar put in the door's lock code and went back into the building. Vinicio followed Omar to the employee's entrance, but didn't go inside because he didn't know where Omar was. Vinicio then walked to the door at the front lobby and he peeked inside, and this is when he saw Omar walking through the office. Omar looked at him, and this is when Vinicio yelled at him to put down the gun, but he didn't. Vinicio then closed the door and ran away. This was all backed up by surveillance footage. It's not clear why Omar left him alone, but we can kinda speculate that maybe Omar didn't care about him or have a problem with him. But after going back through the employee's entrance, Omar went into the main office area. He then went into the office of a woman named Julie, and Julie suffered from multiple sclerosis. She had to be in a wheelchair. She wasn't able to leave the building or hide properly after the shooting started, and she thought she was doomed. Julie attempted to hide behind her desk by leaning as far forward as she could, but her wheelchair was still able to be seen. Omar walked into Julie's office right behind her, and she sat up, and he then said, "You're in a wheelchair." Julie said that Omar then walked back around her desk, said something about the that worked there, and that he exited. Julie said that she thanked him for not killing her. At 7:28 a.m., Julie watched Omar walk over to the receptionist's desk and look out the window. She heard him say, "Police?" but like a question. The next minute, Omar entered the lobby and looked out the lobby doors. This is when he saw the police and ran backwards. Omar tried to re-enter through the interior doors, but they were both locked. He then shot out the glass to get back inside. Omar ran into the office of a woman named Linda and locked himself in there. She wasn't in there at the time. Omar at this point only had 9 rounds left in his Ruger SR9. He left the lunchbox with the other gun, ammo, and magazines in another person's office. But Omar found Linda's work phone and called his mother, Lily, 3 separate times. Then his mother called him. Omar told his mom that he shot 5 of the most ones and that he was locked inside of the office and going to take himself out. That he knew police were inside the building and he was not going to let them take him alive. He didn't want to be in jail. After talking with Omar, he called 911 himself, and here's that conversation. It's messed up, just a warning.
State Police.
This is 911.
Yeah, can I help you?
This is Omar Thornton, the shooter over in Manchester.
Yes, where are you, sir?
I'm in the building. You probably want to know the reason why I shot this place up. And this place is a place.
Yep, I understand that.
They treat me bad over here, and treat all other black employees bad over here too. So I take it into my own hands and handle the problem. I wish I could have got more to people.
Yeah. Are you armed, sir? Do you have a weapon with you?
Oh yeah, I'm armed.
How many guns do you have with you?
I got one now. There's one out in the factory there. I'm not gonna kill nobody else though.
We're gonna have you surrender yourself somehow here, not make the situation any worse. You know what I mean?
These cops are gonna kill me.
No, they're not. We're just gonna have to get you to relax.
I'm relaxed. Calm down.
To have you, turn yourself over.
You're gonna be popular. You're gonna play this on the news. You're gonna be popular right here, man. Make sure you say the right thing. Look, the SWAT team just rode by in Army gear. You don't know where I'm at, but I don't know. Maybe you can trace it from this phone call. But yeah, these people here are crazy in this building. They treat me bad since I started here. Company. Treat me bad. I'm the only black driver they got here.
Okay,
They treat me bad over here. Treat me bad all the time.
Yeah, this has been a horrible situation. I understand that.
Don't try to calm me down. I'm already calmed down.
Yeah.
I'm not going to kill nobody else. I just want to tell my story so you can say it back anyway.
Then you're gonna help me get you out of the building, okay?
All right, I'm gonna get out. Don't worry about it already. I got that taken care of. I don't need anybody talking to me to get me out of the building.
Where in the building are you, Omar?
I can tell you that. When they find me, that's when everything will be over. But
yeah, just where are you located? Are you up in the offices?
When they find me, everything will be all right. Especially Manchester itself is a place.
Yeah. Now, what time did you get there today?
About 7 o'clock.
This morning?
Yeah, about 7 a.m. Yeah.
Yeah.
They come early today.
What type of weapon do you have?
I got a Ruger SR9. 17 shot. Yeah.
SR9?
Automatic, yeah.
Is it a rifle?
No, it's pistol. Nice pistol, too, one of my favorites.
You're going to make the troopers and the people come in and get you? You're not going to surrender yourself?
I guess, maybe I'll surrender. Nah, they'll come and get me. I'll come get me.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to do it like that.
Yeah.
It's already been a bad enough scene here this morning. We want you to relax. Now,
I'm relaxed, though. I'm calm down now.
We don't want any more people to lose their life there.
I'm not going to kill nobody else.
Yeah.
I'm not coming out where I'm at. I'm not coming out there to find some dogs or whatever. I don't know what they do.
How much ammunition you have with you?
I got a lot of shots left. Oh.
What's that?
All right. I guess this conversation is over. I have to take care of business. Tell my people if I love them.
Yeah.
And I got to go now.
Omar.
Yeah.
I really want you to help me stop this situation. Okay?
Okay.
If you work with me, we'll get this to stop. Okay? Omar.
At about 8:06 a.m., Omar Thornton took himself out with a single gunshot. After murdering 8 people and injuring 2 others, Omar's rampage was finally over. A huge investigation was done by the police that found 0 evidence that Omar was experiencing what he said he was at work. I have no doubt that Omar experienced some harsh things in his life, but at Hartford, things did not seem to be that way. Other employees of color said that Omar was treated like family by many of the managers, that there was nobody that was out to get him. Omar was fired for stealing, not only from that company, but other companies. And it's upsetting because his mother and his ex-girlfriends, and yes, I say ex-girlfriends, made it seem like he was completely innocent and that what he did was right. His mother, or Lily Holiday, began a Facebook page or organization sometime shortly after called the OST Memorial Foundation, or the Omar Sharif Thornton Memorial Foundation, which is a non-profit organization dedicated to raising awareness and combating institutional in all of its forms. Not only this, but Lily also wrote a book called The Voice of Omar Sharif Thornton. It's supposedly about Omar's voice and how his side of the story can finally be heard, and a bunch of other random stuff. But I think it's awful to make it all about that when it wasn't. Omar was sick and twisted, and that's quite obvious. He murdered 8 innocent men, and Lily defended him like crazy, basically stating that he's innocent. Omar's blood sister actually called Lily or her mother a demon and said that she was being towards her and that she was busy collecting money off of her little brother's death. Clearly some problems and animosity is there, but also Christy, or Omar's girlfriend, defended him like crazy too and said that the videos of him selling beer on the side were fake and that he'd never do anything like this. But he did. Also, Omar's ex-girlfriend from 20-odd years ago posted a photo with him saying, "Omar Sharif Thornton will be honored. Please stop talking about him." Why on earth would you honor a man that kills people in cold blood? Just, wow. But I figured I'd show you all of that ridiculousness. Louis J. Felder was 50 years old and a father of 3. Louis was the director of operations at Hartford Distributors and also loved rooting for his children at their sports games. Louis was looked at as a great man who was always pushing people to do better. Brian Sirigliano was 51 years old and a husband, a father, a son, and a brother. He had 2 children and was devoted to coaching his daughter and her friend's softball team. Brian was married for 28 years and he loved his family more than life itself. Brian was the president of the Teamsters Local 1035 at the time of his death. Craig Pepin was 60 years old and had a wife named Joanne, and they had 4 children together. Craig was getting ready to retire soon and his children were his pride and joy. Craig was a great athlete in high school and also in college. Sports were a huge part of his life. Craig was a truck driver at Hartford Distributors. Victor James was 60 years old and was employed at Hartford Distributors for 30 years as a truck driver. He was going to retire at the end of the year. Victor, I believe, was divorced, but had 2 daughters and a bunch of wonderful grandchildren that he loved deeply. Everyone knew him by G, and they thought of him as a great man. Douglas Scrutton was 56 years old and married to a woman named Mikkel Ann. Doug was also at Hartford Distributors for over 30 years, and he too was planning on retiring soon. Doug and his wife loved traveling. Doug loved sports, specifically the Patriots and the Red Sox. He was considered to be a gentle soul who loved nature, and he enjoyed helping animals who were injured. Doug was a good man. Francis Fazio Sr. was 57 years old, and he worked at Hartford Distributors for 28 years. I'm not too sure what he did though. But Francis was a lifelong resident of Bristol and a member of church. Francis had a wife named Patricia and they had 2 children. He was a devoted husband and father. Francis tried his hardest to warn people about Omar, and he may have saved some people's lives. William Ackerman Jr. was 51 years old and married to a woman named Stephanie. They had 3 children together and he loved them deeply. William was employed by Hartford Distributors for a very long time. He enjoyed football, hockey, baseball, golfing, hiking, gardening, you name it. He was a huge fan of the Dallas Cowboys and Red Sox and a ton of other sports teams. William was considered to be special and sensitive for a big guy, and his family said that he was one of a kind and he had a big heart. Edwin Eddie Kennison Jr. was 49 years old and had a wife named Kathy and a daughter named Ashley, who he loved very, very much. Eddie was a member of the 1979 CIAC LL Boys State Soccer Tournament champions, and he received the Hugh Greer Award, being honored as the tournament MVP. Eddie loved coaching and sports in general, and just life overall. He was a truck driver for a long time, and him and his wife Kathy had just celebrated their 32nd anniversary. Not one of these men deserved the outcome that they were given. Omar Thornton had an evil vengeance, and regardless of whether or not he believes he was right, he wasn't. Mass murder is never the option. I hope all of these men are resting peacefully and that their families are doing all right. But anyways, thank you for watching this episode of High Time Crime. If true crime is your thing, then please like and subscribe because it's all we do. I also have an all-exclusive Patreon if you're interested in that. There's a bunch of tiers to choose from, and the third one allows for you to see a Patreon-only video, and that tier and the second one allow you to have your name at the end of each High Time Crime video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care, friend.